Hello everybody, how's everyone doing? Hi. My name's Bouchard and I am the proud MLA for Calgary-Lougheed. Thank you. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Democracy requires participation, and I want to thank all of you for participating. Thank you to all the outgoing board members the last 2 years of service. As well, thank you to all of you who have put your name forward to be on the ballot for a position this year. Thank you very much. I also want to thank Natalie Hunter and Canyon Meadows Cinema, who were harassed, bullied, and ultimately canceled by corporate media and the woke mob for renting a space, for having the audacity to rent a space to Calgary-Lougheed when we hosted a town hall called Let Kids Be Kids. Tonight's town hall is Calgary-Lougheed's 6th town hall in a series that we've had, and this is our 2nd Cowtown Showdown. I'm so proud of the work my CA and President Darrell Komick have done so far. The Calgary-Lougheed CA facilitates communication, engagement, and advocacy on behalf of the constituency. They're action-oriented to help raise awareness of local issues. They provide recommendations and feedback on policy and organize events to encourage civic engagement. They've also been strong supporters for me through fundraising, volunteering, planning, and helping build a strong local base. If you're a board member for Calgary-Lougheed, can you please stand up and be recognized? Thank you all very much. What an incredible time to be a member of the UCP. We do face a formidable leader of the opposition that's well-funded and highly organized. We're all here today for the same reason. We all have a commitment to our beautiful, strong, and free province. Alberta's an incredible place to live. This past summer, I've had the opportunity to travel from Milk River to Fort McMurray, from Lethbridge to Whitecourt, and many, many towns in between. We cannot take our freedom for granted. Silence is compliance. Getting involved and exercising our freedom of speech is necessary. I have to admit, a short few years ago, I was pretty disillusioned with politics. In 2022, my wife Roxanne and I became members of the UCP for the first time and attended our first AGM. We drove through a snowstorm from Calgary to Edmonton, and the storm was not going to hold us back because we knew that freedom was on the ballot. At the time, we were not necessarily aware of how crucial that AGM was, but now, as an elected MLA, it's abundantly clear to me how much all of our votes count. That AGM was very well attended, and the party continues to grow. Last year's AGM, we reached over 3,800 people, and I've just been informed that as of 5 o'clock this evening, this year's AGM, there's currently 5,428 people. Amazing, and it's sure to grow. We will be setting new records this year. I'd also heard last year, and I'm sure many of you heard the comments, suggesting that of the 3,800 people that showed up, many didn't truly represent the UCP. I've always believed that democracy is about participation, isn't it? Yeah. That's correct, yeah. Political parties should be welcoming and should seek to include many voices and perspectives. Many of you are here this evening, I'm sure, like Roxanne and I, who are newer to the party. And this is something our membership should definitely celebrate. The need for public engagement, involvement, and participation is now. Being part of something larger than ourselves is not only rewarding, it's our duty as free citizens. So let's get this event started. Enjoy the show, everyone, and thank you for coming.
Go for it. Yep.
I'm Darrell Komick. I'm president of Calgary-Lougheed. Aloha! thing about doing town halls is we get to engage in a conversation. And that's, in Calgary-Lougheed, the foundation to what we're about. Is that we want to have conversations, one topic at a time. Thank you. The one other person who agrees with me. And it's been quite a year. In fact, when we had our own CAAGM, they ended up writing literally a book about everything that the 142 volunteers in Calgary-Lougheed did last year, including electing our friend and MLA Eric Bouchard. Let's give Eric a big round of applause. I just want to welcome everyone here tonight who's in the audience and the 2,500 people that are watching at home streaming live. A little bit later, we're going to talk about our next event that's coming up. We'll give you some introductory details about that. But before we do, I want to give you an overview of what's going to happen tonight. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have executive debates. They're actually going to be more like introductions. There'll be a little Q&A by me with a few of the people that are up here. But for the most part, we've been able to get videos from everybody who is an unofficial candidate for the AGM elections. Until October the 4th, there isn't any official candidates. So this evening, I just want everyone to be very clear that these are unofficial candidates and that the vetting process has not yet been completed. I thought I'd better tell everyone that in case something happens and someone says, well, Darrell, you were an official candidate at the town hall. These are all unofficial candidates. It was yesterday at 5 o'clock. That was the deadline. There were many people who are so enthusiastic about democracy in Alberta and our party that there was filing and filing and filing at like a minute to 5. So it's really impressive that people want to engage that much with our party. We started a couple years ago, like they said, by introducing really excellent candidates, by having the forums, by having engagement with Albertans. And it's been incredibly popular to talk, to have a chat, to have a conversation, to touch on topics that are socially relevant, and to talk about things that are causing people pain. So tonight, we will meet some people named Payne, but we will also be able to meet candidates from across Alberta, and I thank them all for coming. It's been really remarkable, the response that we get, not just from the provincial board. I want to just give acknowledgement and thanks to Rob Smith. Rob sends his regards this evening. He too is trying to keep his small business going, so he has to split his time between what pays the bills and the volunteer part. But Rob does an incredible job, and he's got a cast of amazing volunteers that many of them are here tonight. So I just want to thank everyone for attending, for supporting Calgary-Lougheed, because it's been proven in the last year that the United Conservative Party is about the members. And this is driven by our board of directors and everything that they hold dear, which is to represent you, the members. So big round of applause to that board of directors. So the evening is going to go like this. We're going to have the executive introductions or debates, and then after that, a very special presentation on the upcoming proposed Alberta Bill of Rights. And what's really exciting about that is two of the characters, and when you'll know what that means when you meet them, who wrote the Alberta Bill of Rights and who are driving it to the finish line. They will be here to talk about it in person. You're going to be super informed. You're going to feel like you know what's going on, and it's something that will come up at the AGM. And it's really important that you are aware that having more rights is a better idea than having less rights. And I have a little ditty I will tell you when that's over, an idea that I will share with you. So let's get tonight started. I want to introduce the current president of Calgary Fish Creek, and I believe the only person who ran for Chief Financial Officer of the UCP, Mr. Jack Redekop. So I just want to tell you in advance, Jack is hovering on really, really sick. Give me my microphone back. But he's still feisty. You can tell because he keeps taking my mic. So please forgive Jack if he has to cough in between, but he's going to try to give a little overview. Again, Jack Redekop, everybody.
Thank you. We'll see how this goes. It just kind of starts coughing at some point and then I'm done, so we'll see how far it goes. But I have a bit of an announcement already to make. Unofficially, I got a call yesterday afternoon around 5 o'clock that said I was the only candidate and I have been acclaimed for the position of Chief Financial Officer. So that kind of changes what I was going to talk about tonight, in a good way, I think, mostly. I mean, I was going to give a brief speech about accountability, transparency, and understandability in accounting, and give my experience there, but you're stuck with me one way or the other. So there we go. But I also wanted to, I mean, last year we had the largest political conference in the history of the country. And that was 3,828. Sonia knows the number for sure. And yes, got a text this afternoon. We're at 5,428 as we speak. So we're blowing that record right out of the water. And you know, who is that? That's because of you, right? That's because of your engagement. Your engagement, I mean, these people that are applying for positions, they're all volunteer positions. Darrell's a volunteer position. And all of the executive. And I just want to say that it's the engagement of you that really has made all the difference. That inspires us, that gets us going. We want to make a difference, we want to serve. And what have we done over the last year? Well, my goodness, we've totally restructured AHS. I mean, all the policy suggestions that were made last year, many of them are going forward. So we're dismantling Alberta Health Services entirely. That was a policy initiative and restructuring it. You know, we're rewriting the school curriculum and we are taking the gender-biased education out of elementary schools. Tabulators are going to go the way of the Didow bird. That's already been committed. So all of this that's happening really could not happen without the engagement of you. And this is the biggest movement in the history, so I'm pretty old. In my lifetime, for sure, yeah. For sure. And I just really wanted to thank you for being engaged, continue to be engaged. I mean, Darrell had a comment, I think it was about 1.5 years ago, asking you to come get engaged so that we could get so many people to the AGM and get all the policies approved. And then he said, but it's only just starting. And yes, it is. It increases, but only because of your engagement. And we are now in a position not only just to lead Alberta into prosperity, but the rest of the country. There's a movement, and you're probably completely aware of what's happening in Europe, a far shift to conservative, principled conservatives. And we're part of the biggest shift in Canada. So that does not happen without all your engagement. So that was really all I wanted to speak on. Thank you again, and looking forward to serving you as your Chief Financial Officer.
So Jack, before you go, Jack is in charge of the Win Back Calgary strategy for the upcoming election in 2027. And he dug into the archives of comments made by the Premier. And one of the key things that I thought that you discovered and you got us to be talking about was the 6 tenets of conservatism. Maybe you could just share those with everyone tonight.
Sure. So in her leadership campaign, she came up with what the 6 tenets of conservatism are. Family, faith, free enterprise, fiscal sustainability, and freedom. Freedom. And charity. So they have, Darrell's on this committee, made me chairman of the Election Review and Readiness Committee for the party. And those are going to become the fundamental tenets that we're going to be bringing across the province, to every door in the province. Those are what we are as conservatives, and we're not going to get into very divisive discussions about single issue situations. we're just going to discuss who we are as conservatives. And yes, we are a freedom-oriented crowd. I wanted to share, I always share some sayings and comments. One of my favorites is the secret of freedom lies in educating people, whereas the secret of tyranny is in keeping them ignorant. And we've seen a lot of this keeping us ignorant over the last decades. And so with your engagement, we're advancing freedom, and that was Maximilien Robespierre. But anyways, I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. So we have 3 candidates that are running for vice president membership. I'm going to give you the overview. They're Patrick Melkin, Peter Sandu, and Keith Plowman. And Patrick and Peter send their regards and regrets that they couldn't be here today. But we do have Keith Plowman. Keith, why don't you come up here? And Keith has a very interesting story. He's a committed conservative, and we've seen him in action. You just didn't realize that he was moving and doing. That's your microphone right there. What we're going to do is going to give every candidate 3 to 5 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we might have a few questions, or I might have a few questions. Other than that, then we'll move on to the next group. Thanks, Keith.
You mentioned like having a conversation, so let's get comfortable and I'll see if I can introduce myself to you guys. My name's Keith Plowman. I am a business owner and part-time hobby farmer. I spend my time between Athabasca, Alberta and Fort McMurray and now Calgary, so put a lot of miles on that old truck. Married to my beautiful wife Kelly. We have 5 children and 2 grandchildren, so we're doing our part to the population. Absolutely. Someone asked me earlier, why are you doing this? And I said, well, I've got a lot of board experience. I'm the president of the Fort McMurray Construction Association. I've served on 3 different CA boards, currently with Athabasca Barhead Westlock. I'm on the Provincial Alberta Construction Association as a director, Chamber of Commerce, a lot of different volunteer experience. Anyways, all that just to say that this board position isn't going to take a lot of learning Robert's Rules of Order and those kind of things. I understand the way it functions and how that works. So I think my skill set is going to allow me to move into that position quickly. So that's a bit about who I am. So why am I here? I look around the room and hear some of the stories that I've heard, and my story is very similar, I think, to yours. The last few years, especially since COVID, I've been pretty disgusted with how politics worked. It seemed like, use the word tyranny, it seemed like that. It seemed like the policies were from on high, and MPs and MLAs were there to convince us how to be and how to think. And we really didn't feel like we had a choice of our own on what to do and how to think. And to me, that's completely back-asswards. When I look at the way the government should work, it should be us as the membership, as the constituents, developing that mandate, giving it to our MLAs, them getting together in a big room, the legislature, talking about it, and coming up with our rules and regulations and laws. That's how it should work. So, to me, it's all about the membership. And that's why I'm running for a VP membership. If I'm elected to this position, if and when I'm elected to this position, I've got basically 4 things that I'd like to see happen. The first thing, I think we need a culture change on how we look at membership. So being part of a membership organization, we constantly are doing strat plans about what will benefit the member. And to me, when I look at our party, there's only 2 times that we sell memberships. Nominations and leadership reviews. And everything else in between is basically forgotten about. And to me, that's not a benefit to the member, that's a benefit to the MLAs and the leader. At one point, we had 125,000 members during the last leadership review. I think the current membership sits at between 50 and 60,000 somewhere. That's less than half. So where did all those people go? Why are we not having their voices heard and listening to them? So I think we need to shift that culture away from just doing it at a nomination event or fundraiser and have the membership be a priority throughout the entire time, not just the election cycle. Yeah. Second thing, dedicated membership drives. So when I think about that, again, we do fundraisers, we do leadership reviews. Is there not other ways that we can attract and bring members in? So I was thinking about it today. There was a little event called the Injection of Truth. If you guys have ever heard of that. It doesn't have to be that. It can be sporting events. It can be whatever. It's wherever you're talking to your friends and family and you can share a little bit about what makes you tick. That's the time that we should be pushing for membership. So a dedicated membership drive that is nothing to do with fundraising or leadership race. Third thing, youth. So I was at the Lacombe Big Tent event, and at the end, the lady that was giving out the prizes did a little experiment. So she said, everyone over 80, would you please stand up? And there was a couple of people that stood up. So then she said, okay, everyone, 70 to 80, and a few more people stood up. 60 to 70, even more people stood up. 50 to 60, just about everybody stood up. And then she said, everyone below that, stand up, and there wasn't very many. Like we need a succession plan, right? Like our opposition, they have this figured out. They're getting the ideologies in the school, they're going from when the kids are very small. I'm not saying that we need to do that, but we need to have a succession plan to get youth involved again in this party. Or, you know, once this gray hair turns even grayer, there's going to be nobody left here. The last thing I've been thinking about, and I did a lot of door knocking in Fort McMurray during the last election, and it's the ease of selling memberships. And I know there's lots of people out there probably saying, that's elections, Alberta, they govern it. But you just said we got rid of the tabulators for the elections. There's got to be a way that we can sell memberships easier without having to have an electronic copy of it. Or, you know, I'll just give you a story of how I came to that conclusion. So you go to someone's house, you're door knocking, and they say, okay, you know what, I love your ideas, I want to become a member. So you say, well, here's my phone, can you just put your credit card number in here for me? Right? Like, no one wants to do that. And then they say, well, I'll do it later on my computer after you're gone, and guess what? They don't ever do it. So we need to change that. If people want to become members, we need to make it easier for them. So yeah, my name's Keith Plowman, I'm running for membership. If you have any questions,
I have several.
wandering around.
This will be no surprise to anybody. So Keith, I heard you basically describe your first 3 points as building community. And when I combined, and what I heard from Jack was about the 6 pillars of conservatism. Are you suggesting that membership in and of itself should demonstrate to our communities regularly what conservative values are? And by demonstrating those conservative values, we actually attract people who want to visually and emotionally and by membership-wise say, I am conservative.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And so I just had another thought while you were. Increasing membership benefits our communities to a great extent. Like when you think every time you sell a membership, every time your membership grows, you grow your volunteer base. right? And if you grow your volunteer base, you grow your reach out into the community. Once that reach grows out into the community, guess what? We're winning some of those seats back in Calgary. We're winning some seats in Edmonton. The more membership you have, the more volunteers that are out there, the better chance we have at winning some of these races in some of these places where right now the NDP has a stronghold.
Big round of applause. Keith Plowman, ladies and gentlemen. I'll vote for you. Thank you for coming all the way down from Athabasca or Fort McMurray. I'm not sure where you were earlier today, but it's amazing for you to come here. Thank you. The next gentleman I'm going to introduce, he had no competition. You all know him. You love him. You understand his commitment. He lives being conservative every day. I want to welcome whom I think is probably the guy that won it by acclamation, our Vice President of Policy and Governance, Mr. Ray Strom, everybody. You know the thing when you ask Ray a question? You can make the question as long as you want. And Ray will stop and he will pause for all the time it takes for him to gather his thoughts.
I just want to start by saying thank you so much to each and every one of you. I'm in my tribe. I can't tell you what a pleasure it's been serving on the Party Policy and Governance Committee, some of whom we have here tonight. But basically, it has given opportunity to interact with so many individual members, and I place a strong emphasis on the importance of individuals in our UCP party. It's absolutely critical, and the level of engagement that I've seen over the last 2 to 3 years is absolutely remarkable. I'm absolutely thrilled with how people have stepped up to the plate. People that you would have assumed simply didn't have, at least in themselves, they didn't think they had anything to offer. It is absolutely critically important, in my view, that individuals like all of you, myself included, step up to the plate when we're basically conscripted to do what I think we're called to do. It's also important to understand how we work together. And for me, the unity of the party is something that potentially, I think, needs some work. We all understand that. We're very individualistic in our thinking, and that's good, but sometimes it leads to conflict. I see the way out of this is to make a decision as individuals to move forward in spite of our differences. Find our commonalities. And to me, party policy is finding those commonalities. I can't tell you what a thrill it was for me last year to sit at the front of that crowd and watch as we voted, as seas of green kept showing up. Now those of you at the back saw seas of red. The green was absolutely remarkable and absolutely thrilling to see. The result of that is what we're going to be hearing about a little bit later tonight. And for us on the PPGC, Al, shepherding things through making it possible for individuals to see their ideas flourish, grow, and actually come to fruition, not at the AGM, but on the legislative floor. That's where it really pays dividends. And considering that this started out basically with a group of 4 people, understand that it's encouraging to see that process work. To me, that's democracy. And we can stand to see more of that, not less of that. So thank you everybody for your support. I can't tell you how encouraging it is to have a chance to chat with each one of you over whatever meetings that we attend in common. It's just very enjoyable for me, and I hope it's enjoyable for you. So thank you.
So Ray, last year, Ray has made policy sexy. Last year, I think there was some 10,000 hours that people volunteered to write the policies at last year's AGM. How many were actually submitted for ranking by members last year?
The number that came to ranking were somewhere around a little over 100, I think, and about 25, somewhere 130, something like that.
And there was like 300 or 400 policies that were put forward and then got
That's
to the
correct.
ranking process.
Yeah.
This year, how many policies were put forward?
We had an excess of 300 or 840.
It's an incredible number, right?
So part of that was the process that the PPGC initiated, Party Policy and Governance Committee, initiated to make it easier for you as individual members to submit materials. Many people complained for a long time that they felt they had no input into the party. That process that we initiated allowed for that kind of input. And I can tell you that on several occasions I got feedback from numbers of members who stated, this is how democracy should work.
It's incredible. I think there's a correlation between the level of interest in our party and the number of people who submit policies and the number of people who are coming to the AGM. Because people want to vote on those policies for which they were engaged with. It's like the ultimate pre-legislative experience for the member is to work in groups to form policy. It's part of membership, I think. When you look at how all of the various parts of the board work together, party policy, you've got membership, you've got fundraising, these are all part of having a level of interest and engagement that's relevant. And I think on behalf of everybody, we thank you and your committee for making policy relevant and for making the members and standing for members to be heard. So thank you so much, Ray. Big round of applause, Ray Strom, everybody. Thank you all. So, Southern Region Director, by acclamation, well, okay, we don't officially know that, but nobody ran against Albert Van Heerden that we know of. And if somebody has run against Albert, we will know by October the 4th. So Albert sends his regards. He can't be here today, but thanks everybody for his supporting him and his ongoing support of the Provincial Board of Directors. So thank you all so very much. So coming up now, we have 3 nominees
in Calgary for Calgary Regional Director. The outgoing director is Mr. Peter Weichler. Peter is a dedicated person that you will not find a finer gentleman, except for maybe the crop of people coming this year, but I'd tell Pete that himself anyway. Pete worked tirelessly and was always willing to listen, and I think that was one of the keys to his success. You know you could go to Pete and he would listen to you, and then he would then process it, talk to a few people, and then the wheels started moving. So I think we need to give Peter Weichler just a big round of applause for his amazing contribution to our board. So the three nominees in Calgary are Brad LaForge, Cameron Penn, and Dr. Eric Payne. And these are the three, I know, well, three good candidates, right? We're fortunate enough we allowed everybody who came, who couldn't come, to send us a video and allow someone to introduce that video for them. So first up will be the video from Brad. And Brad would be here, except he's out celebrating his 40th wedding anniversary. Okay, so I think we can cut him a little slack on that. And his video is going to be introduced. Art, are you out there somewhere? Where's Art? Sheldon, you got to get up down here, buddy. Sheldon's going to introduce this video. Now, what I want to tell you about Sheldon is I will have to shut Sheldon's microphone off. And normally Perry would be sitting down here. She's recovering from her convalescence. We send Perry our best, and she would have cards, and they would be yellow and then red. And when it's red, you knew your time was up. But so to Perry, we hope you're getting better. You gonna introduce Brad?
Yeah.
This is Sheldon from the Yak Stack, everybody.
All right, you are gonna have to shut me down. You know that already.
I do.
I got a text from Brad, and Brad said, "Yeah, no, it's all is good with Darrell." So I texted Darrell and said, "Okay, has Brad reached out to you? Is everything okay?" And he goes, "Yeah, you got 60 seconds." I've already cut into a lot of that. So Darrell told a little bit of a fib here about Brad. Brad is not available to come out to introduce himself tonight. CTV got a hold of a couple of clips that they streamed together showing Brad being apparently supportive of oil and gas in Alberta, and Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault whisked in and grabbed Brad away. A true testament to the type of people that we are, the type of people that we want representing us, is the people that surround us. And one thing is, I want you to give yourselves a big hand for just being here and being a part of that. And inside of that, I know that a lot of you know Brad. A lot of you support him. He's well welcomed inside of the community, well respected, shows a lot of dedication. And to not go over my 60 seconds, I think I'm going to drop it there and say, hey, thanks everybody for coming out tonight. Huge thanks to Darrell Komick and to the Lougheed group, Eric Bouchard, everybody that's come out to this evening to show their support for the UCP.
All right. Thank you, Sheldon. And just, I think to Sheldon's credit, Sheldon had got enough names for nominations to put his name forward. And Sheldon stepped aside when he heard that Brad was running. So that was Sheldon's commitment to the party and to the greater cause. So, thank you, Sheldon. Let's hear from Brad.
Here. Hi, I'm Brad LaForge, and I am Albertan. A shameless plug for an organization I am proud to be associated with. I can't be with you tonight in person. I am celebrating 40 years of marriage with my wife, Angie. I was born in Westlock in 1962, and my journey has been one where business success intertwines with a passion for politics. In 1971, I relocated to Calgary with my parents. My professional career began working at UFA, managing accounts for petroleum agents across Alberta. After a brief stint at RGO in the mid-1990s, I ventured into entrepreneurship, owning and operating 2 successful businesses. For the past 22 years, I've led Core Group, a thriving hospitality procurement firm, as well as Core Logistics, a last mile home delivery service. Recently, I celebrated the successful openings of both the BMO Convention Center and the SAM Center on the Stampede grounds. In 2021, I reached a milestone by successfully selling Core Logistics, which I see as a testament to my leadership. I also currently serve as a director on the board for Bow Valley Credit Union. Outside of work, I'm a devoted family man, happily married with 2 adult children, living in Calgary with their spouses. I firmly believe in individual rights and am a passionate advocate for freedom of speech and bodily autonomy, particularly in the provincial realm of provincial politics. I'm committed to being not just a businessman, but also a proactive community advocate. The past 4 years have shown me that I can no longer stand on the sidelines and expect the changes I want to see happen on our own. This awakening has been one of the most rewarding and fulfilling experiences of my life. Getting involved at the grassroots level has transformed my life for the better. I've formed many new friendships with others who share a common goal, creating the change we all desire. I'm incredibly proud of those who have stepped up to join their constituency associations, community, and school boards to take action. This includes the hundreds of people who stepped outside their comfort zone to speak in front of the City of Calgary to oppose blanket rezoning. I truly believe this is the only path to building the better society we all crave. My interests are diverse, spanning travel, cooking, and hockey. I've been fortunate enough to combine work-related travels with personal adventures, allowing me to explore the globe. Whether navigating the challenges of the business world or preparing a meal for my friends and family, I strive to live a life rich in experiences, achievements, and unwavering values. I believe integrity is paramount. If I am fortunate enough to be elected to the UCP Board of Directors, I promise to represent the members of Calgary with the respect and dedication they deserve. Additionally, I will collaborate with all interested members to ensure we never become an NDP federal outpost again. Thank you for your consideration. I can effectively represent your interests. I would be grateful for your vote on November 2nd.
That's Brad LaForge. Next up, we have Cameron Penn. Cameron is a member of the Calgary-Glenmore CA. He recently had stepped into the responsibility of dealing with policies there. And we have a few words from Cameron.
Hello, I'm Cam Penn and I'm running to be your Calgary Director for the United Conservative Party. I'm running because I support our Premier, our province, and our party. I want to ensure that we defeat the Nenshi NDP and win back Calgary in 2027. As your next Calgary Director, I will ensure that our CAs are well equipped and have the infrastructure ready to fight the next election. Make no mistake, my friends, this next election will be close and it will be won or lost here in Calgary. And I want to make sure that we win back every single riding that we lost in 2023 and win more beyond that. And in order to do that, my commitment to you is working closely with our CAs and our party to staff up the CAs, to train our volunteers to get them election ready. Training on GOTV, voter identification, SIMS. These key infrastructure points are important to ensure that we are able to fight the next election. Of course, in addition to being election ready, I want to represent your voice and to listen to you. As a director on Calgary-Glenmore, I regularly attend events and I regularly meet with members. I proudly knocked over 1,000 doors in the last provincial election. And I will bring that level of advocacy, that dedication to my role as Calgary Director. A little bit about myself. I am a lawyer by trade and I work here in Calgary. I live in downtown with my beautiful girlfriend and she's the one who's holding the camera right now. And for myself, I am an independent candidate. I'm not backed by or affiliated with any slate or third party, as evidenced by the quality of this video. But together, I think we can build on the great successes we've had as a united party. I think our focus should be on continuing being united, supporting our Premier, and turning our eyes and focusing squarely on ensuring that Naheed Nenshi never becomes Premier of Alberta, to ensure that we win back the Calgary seats that we lost in 2023. And together we can do that. I ask for your vote. I can be reached at any time at campenn4ucp@gmail.com. That's cam, Penn, for UCP@gmail.com. I look forward to meeting many of you, hopefully all of you, at the AGM in November. Thank you.
Cameron Penn. The next candidate needs no introduction. You'll know his name, but you might have never seen him. But we all know his reputation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Dr. Eric Payne.
Thanks, Darrell. Well, thanks everyone for being here. It's great to see everybody out and being involved, which is what I've decided I need to do, step up and be even more involved than I've been the last 4 years. I think a lot of people do know a lot about me, but just a little bit of background. I grew up in Ottawa. Faith, family, freedom, those are charity. Those are definitely 4 of the hallmarks of the Payne family. My dad was a forensic accountant, and he also was the Minister of Wheat's Chief of Staff under the Mulroney government. So I grew up listening to politics all the time and wanting nothing to do with it, frankly. So I headed into medicine instead. Came out to Calgary in 2003 with my brother. He's 2 years younger. We were both starting medical school at the University of Calgary. I stayed here to complete a 5-year pediatric neurology residency program, and he went back. He's in Ontario and Toronto, unfortunately. Our third brother is in Ottawa, and so he's far away as well. But nonetheless, close family. And after 5 years of peds neurology, I went out to the hospital for sick children. I was supposed to come back to Alberta Children's Hospital after finishing a fellowship in neurocritical care and epilepsy. But unfortunately, there was a hiring freeze in Alberta at the time, and I got recruited to Mayo Clinic instead. So I spent 6 years in what I will always consider to be the epitome of healthcare delivery. Very fortunate to be there. Came back to the Children's Hospital. At this point now, my wife and I had added 2 more children, so we have 3 kids, aged 6, 8, and 10. 2 of them were born in the U.S. They're United States citizens. But we thought we were returning back to Calgary, where I had the job that I'd worked for a long time. My wife is from Brandon, Manitoba. Tons of family and friends here as well. But very shortly, we all discovered that things were maybe not what we thought they were going to be. And so I think, at this point, we have no choice but to advocate and to stand up. What I find very frustrating is to listen to a lot of the healthcare lies and misinformation being spread, and listening to our Premier get attacked when she comes up advocating on behalf of children against masks, when she's got the high ground on the science and she gets hit for it. There's got to be a way, and I'm hoping by being a medical person, that we can help sort of stand back and push back against that. And I do believe that it's certainly possible. But I think there are not enough physicians who are engaged right now in politics. There's certainly a lot on the NDP side. You see them tweeting and knocking down our party and our Premier. That being said, I think it's time for us to stand up because we've got the truth on our side.
How many complaints have been filed against you by the College of Physicians and Surgeons?
I'm up to 6.
I mean, these are like almost badges of honor now. Like it's almost as if you're one of the few physicians, and you're tell me the exact title that you're a specialist with.
I'm a child neurologist, and I specialize in epilepsy neurocritical care.
So when you and I tend to talk, you get a complaint from the college. So we have to be very careful here tonight.
These are the kind of decisions that are tough because, you know, my family, there's no doubt, over the last 4 years has been difficult. After being just part of the Injection for Truth event, just for participating, a complaint was lodged asking, you know, why is Dr. Payne participating in an event sanctioned by the UCP? That, you know, that was in brackets, wasn't anything actually on the complaint. But participating in an event with rogue physicians and scientists who have been discredited. You know, I don't want Dr. Payne to speak at this event. And I get this complaint, you know, weeks after speaking at the event. And then, you know, on the surface it seems nonsense. But at the same time, it takes a lot of time and effort to go through this. So, you know, being part of this, I think, definitely adds to that target. You know, the complaints, just to be clear, I mean, I went through 4 complaints in the span of about 6 months, starting in the fall of 2021. Starting with a letter that I wrote to the college themselves, the college council members, speaking about my concern about the vaccine mandate, especially as it pertained to children. And, you know, there was, you know, somebody in the community I'd never met that filed a complaint. And then shortly thereafter, a colleague actually filed a complaint, both essentially for misinformation. And, you know, the time and effort to respond to those things was enormous. But despite 2 years of investigation, 2 anonymous experts who never had to reveal their bias and who they were or their training, who found me preliminary guilty of misinformation and unprofessionalism, the college actually dismissed both those complaints within the last few months.
I remember that first letter that you wrote. It was a watershed moment for speaking the truth. It seemed that at that particular time, there was no one on the medical professional side that would speak and provide, say, an alternative perspective for people to actually have informed consent. So people could actually think about it, ask some questions, and then come to a conclusion. And you were asking very valid scientific questions. And generally, our conversations have to do with science and learning about actual hands-on practices. So now we have politics for you. I mean, this seems to be the same, given all of the politics. I mean, look how much politics you've dealt with just to be a doctor. I mean, it's incredible. And that has to be very stressful because that's the kind of politics where they can take away your livelihood with these, I'm going to say this, you don't say this, frivolous complaints. So you're going to be in the limelight, you're going to be a potential target for the NDP. Do you relish that? Or how do you think you're going to handle that?
Well, I mean, medicine and science is not consensus-based, right? I mean, the idea that you can have a consensus opinion and that was going to be right was always nonsense. It's completely counterintuitive. You know, and as somebody who wrote that letter hoping to engage in discussion, right, I had no desire to fight with the college, no desire to pick a fight. You know, I was being coerced to take the mandate in order to keep a job that I just moved back from the States, highlighting the science. But from day one, I have always wanted to engage and talk and debate. I mean, I'm not hiding from that discussion. The side who's hiding from the discussion is the one who doesn't show up to Injection for Truth. It's the side that, you know, defames and censors and, you know, but does not actually fight for the facts. You know, that the facts have not mattered has been a learning thing for me to come to the grips with. But you know, for instance, the current NDP healthcare critic, Dr. Luann Metz, is a neurologist, ran in Foothills, just got elected. She was actually a staff member of mine when I was a neurology resident for at least a couple of days. I mean, when I get to listen to, you know, the facts being stated, they're just not accurate. And in real time, I could spit them back. And I would love that opportunity. So I'm not shying away from that at all.
Are you suggesting that we should have a debate between you and Leanne Metz?
Absolutely.
Is this a little like the fire and bridal debate with Tim Coffey? I mean, I think we could sell tickets for this.
Well, you know, the big difference there is that Leanne Metz is actually a qualified neurologist, right? Tim Caulfield is not qualified in science. He's a lawyer, and he's bought and paid for by the Trudeau Foundation. Those are facts. Leanne Metz, you know, full-on neurologist who actually was in charge of the hydroxychloroquine trial in Alberta, and it was shut down after those two fraudulent trials came out, one in Lancet, one I think it was New England Journal of Medicine, right after President Trump suggested that that might be effective. Both of those, you know, big, huge trials, they got redacted because they were completely made up. They were totally fabricated, and yet the trial in Alberta that was looking to see if hydroxychloroquine could work to keep you out of the hospital never got started back up. And she was responsible for that as far as I can tell.
Dr. Eric Payne, everybody, big round of applause. He just came to the end of his time limit. I had more questions, but I just figured I better stop there to keep him from getting another complaint filed against him. All right, so there are in Central Alberta three candidates, three proposed yet unofficial candidates. Kelly Lawrence, Abigail Schimke, and Kelsie Peterson. And Kelly can't be here today. He's helping his dad who was injured badly in Newfoundland. And he's out there doing First Pillar, family for Conservatives. And do we have Abigail's video? So Abigail coming up here. There she is. She's the incumbent director for Central.
Good evening. My name is Abigail Schimke, and I'm running for re-election as your Central Alberta Director for the UCP Board. For the past 2 years, I've had the incredible honor of representing and advocating for you, our UCP members. I want to begin by expressing my heartfelt thanks to each one of you for placing your trust in me and support. It's been an incredible experience. It's been a joy to connect with so many of you at events and meetings in the last 2 years. With your support, I hope to continue doing this. As I seek your support for re-election, I want to share the core principles that guide my work. First and foremost, I believe in family, faith, and freedom. These values not only shape my life, but also resonate deeply with the people in our communities. I believe that a strong community is built upon these foundations, and it's my commitment to ensure these principles remain at the forefront of our party's mission. I'm committed to serving you, members of the United Conservative Party, and I'm very blessed to have the time and resources to allocate for such a demanding volunteer position. I pledge to continue listening to all the members of our party in Central Alberta, each and every one of you. Your voices, ideas, and concerns are what make this party strong. As I travel throughout Central Alberta in the months ahead, I promise to engage in meaningful conversation, to hear your perspectives, and to be an advocate for you. And finally, accountability is my pledge to you. I understand the immense responsibility that comes with being your representative, and I want you to know that I take this responsibility seriously. I will ensure that we operate transparently and that you are kept informed about our decisions, and that we collectively hold each other accountable to the high standards of our party represents. In these challenging times, we must remain united. The strength of our party lies in our ability to work together, support one another, and rally behind our shared vision for Alberta. I ask for your support as we move forward together. With our trust, I will continue to serve Central Alberta with passion, integrity, and commitment. Thank you once again for your continued support over the last 2 years, and thank you for considering me for re-election. Let's keep our United Conservative Party strong and free.
There's Abigail Schimke. And just so everybody knows, we will post all of the videos online so you can listen to them carefully. And I could tell in Abigail's video here, it was breaking in and out, possibly
due to the high quality of the videos that everyone's putting forward on their volunteerism. But keep in mind that it's important to hear the words, and we will make sure and ensure that everyone has a fair opportunity to hear what was said. So just don't think that anything was muffled or filtered for any reason, and then I will encourage you to go to our website, ucp-calgary-lougheed.ca, in order to get the links. It'll take us a couple days to get the links up there to all of the videos and all of the speeches that you've heard here tonight, okay? So just be very clear, if you're watching at home or you're here in the audience, that will be made available to everybody, as are all of the videos made available to the candidates to use for their own promotional purposes. Okay, so with that, the third candidate is here tonight. Please welcome Kelsie Peterson. Notice how orderly Conservatives are.
All right, my name is Kelsie Peterson, and I am running for Central Alberta Director. And I just want to start out by sharing a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Central Alberta. I lived in the Olds area growing up, and when I grew up and moved away, I ended up in Northern Alberta in the Bonnyville area for about 20 years. And just recently, last year, my family and I had the opportunity to move back home. And so we're really happy to find ourselves back in this area. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I have 3 sons. They are 11, 13, and 14. I've spent the last 23 odd years as a teacher. I've worked in the public system where conservative voices are sorely needed. I have been a homeschooling mom for 6 years now. And currently I work as a home ed support facilitator supporting other homeschooling families. So that is a bit of my professional. I've also been a piano teacher running my own business for the last 25 years. And I had a brief but fascinating stint in radio. I asked a question and suddenly I had a job. So, and that's interestingly kind of how I ended up here. So I like to ask questions. So I'm here because, like probably a lot of you, about 3.5, 4 years ago, things started going a little bit south, and I started paying a little bit more attention. And so over the last 4 years, I have learned how to use my voice, and I have learned how to try to communicate into my community, into my government, what I would like to see. And initially I started that out with writing letters, being active online, and found myself quite frustrated at times, and so I just have started to try to figure out different ways where I can use my voice. And in that time, I've learned also that I need to stand strong. I need to stand for what I believe in and not back down. Up until now, I haven't been involved much because up until now, I have been busy homeschooling my boys and supporting my husband, who was also a public school teacher until about 2 years ago. Now I have 2 of my children are in school. I'm still homeschooling one of them, and my time is a little bit more free, and I feel like now is a great time for me to kind of step forward and take this opportunity. What I would like to see for the board, and my role in the board, is for us to keep moving forward towards more of a member-driven model. I have seen so many good movements in that direction, and I would really like us to keep moving there, because the member voices matter, and as we are more and more involved as members, that helps our government to take more and more action that reflects the values and ideals of conservatism. As Central Director, I want to help and support the CAs in my area, because I think, again, if we can keep dribbling down that member involvement, and if we can help to get the members engaged on the ground level, the engagement helps with buy-in, and the buy-in helps to make the party strong. And as one of the other candidates up here said, talked about the ripple effect throughout the communities, and how building our party then actually builds a more conservative culture within our province, which then builds us toward elections and helps to keep our province strong and free.
Do you have a question for me? Oh, just trying it out, just see. I mean, being involved, I mean, you're not just a mom and a wife. I mean, you're a businesswoman. You're engaged in your community every day. You spoke of homeschooling and education of youth. Could you expand maybe on how you feel your role on the board of the UCP Provincial Board could benefit children and their education?
I just feel so importantly, I had brought my children home from school before things had shut down. I had seen enough. I loved my kids' school. It was a great school, but it just was not where I wanted them marinating 8 hours a day. And so I brought them home, and I think the benefit was, and has been, that I was able to teach my children to think independently. And so my older children are now in junior high, and they just went back to school last year. It's a tough go to throw yourself back into junior high, and I feel like they've been really able to stand strong and to be who they are and not really worry. And I think as conservatives, we want to try so hard to bring everybody in, and it is very important, but we have to be so careful that while we're bringing anybody in, that we're not bending over backwards at the same time. And I think that is just such an important thing, to stay strong to our values and our principles and the things that guide us as a party, and to not waver.
So would you agree that while our name might be the United Conservative Party of Alberta, that we really are a coalition of conservatives willing to have shared and respected values?
Yeah, we have to work together, and we have to, another one of the candidates said again, unite around those shared values and work together on those things, and put those things front and foremost, because I think those are the things that make us conservative, and as we focus on those things, it allows us to bring people in because they see what we're about and they trust us. And then that's another thing that I think is really important moving forward, is building that trust, knowing that the person that you see on the stage, on the screen, in the parking lot, that is the same person, and they're not turning around, going into another venue or another location and being a different person. So we need to build the trust and to work together by being authentic.
Big round of applause. Kelsie, Peterson. So north of us is a little place called Edmonton. It hasn't seen blue in a long time, but there's two ladies running for Edmonton director that want to make a difference. And those two nominees, potential unofficial candidates, are Jill Didow and Bobbi Menard. And we have a video here from Jill.
Hi there, Jill Didow here, and I'm running for Regional Director for Edmonton. I read this quote a few months ago and it stuck with me. People often say with pride, I'm not interested in politics. They might as well say I'm not interested in my standard of living, my health, my job, my rights, my freedoms, my future, or any future. If we mean to keep any control over our world and our lives, we must be interested in politics. Now that was a quote from an incredible lady back in 1908, so I figured that if she could think that back in 1908, I can certainly step forward in 2024. As with many of us, I have your story. There was a certain thing and a certain reason why I had to wake up and become involved. And ironically, it was for the same reasons as the quote from 1908. The things at stake were our health, our jobs, our freedoms, our children, our future. I became involved in 2020 by attending meetings, SA 2022, Take Back Alberta, Alberta Prosperity Project, basically any meeting I could go to that would help me understand the political landscape. And all of those were cumulative in me finding myself at the AGM last year in Calgary. I went because I was encouraged to go from meetings I attended, and I went because I'm a UCP supporter with strong conservative values who believes in our province. When I sat in that room last year at the AGM, and I had this book in my hands, and this green card, and this red no card, I felt such an honor to be there, to be shaping what I believe is the direction of our party, and it gave me an immense feeling of pride. There were close to 50 decisions that needed to be voted on, changes and edits to resolutions and policies, and guess what? Because I attended the AGM, I got to be part of that. I heard this little story. People will remark, well, what really can I do? I only get one vote every 4 years. But one lady had the best response when she said, well, that's interesting because the year Danielle was chosen leader, I had 49 votes that year alone. So how is it that you only get one every 4 years? This is the exciting part. We formed and made decisions around things like defending Alberta's economy by opposing the federal government's net zero, protecting individual right to free expression, informed consent regarding decisions of our bodies, protecting individuals' rights to privacy and confidentiality of their healthcare information, and very important, preventing concerns of electoral fraud by banning voting machines. I believe strongly in the integrity of our voting system. But something else happened to me at that AGM, because later when asked if I would let my name stand to run as Edmonton director on the UCP board, it was a yes. When the UCP won the election, I posted on social media, I have never been more proud to be a born and raised rural Alberta girl, because it was thanks to rural Alberta that we formed a UCP government. However, I have lived in Edmonton for the past 40 years now, so I'm a true Edmontonian. In addition to our province, I want our city to prosper and thrive, and I believe that that happens with the UCP government. I am now retired, but I worked in the not-for-profit sector all my life. I understand board meetings, policies, volunteerism, strategic planning, and as your Edmonton director, I want to work with our constituency associations to make us stronger and even more united. I currently sit on my Glenora Association, and we need to work to turn Edmonton blue. Again, being retired, I will have the time to commit to attending meetings of the CAs and to be responsive to your needs. And I will work with the UCP Executive Director to establish active CAs in Edmonton and work to share information and facilitate regular communications. In my last job of 10 years, I worked for an association with over 3,000 members. I saw firsthand how responsive the association was to its members. And I believe our board needs to be just as responsive to what I believe is one layer of the members, and the constituency associations is another layer. In fact, one of my jobs was working for CKUA Radio, and of course that's a province-wide charity, so I also understand that sometimes there's a pain of working province-wide and trying to get everybody on the same page and get things accomplished. I've lived in this province during abundant times where jobs were plenty, costs were lower, and I want to help our province in some small way to get back to those times. We need a province that is strong and free. So I hope you will join me in Red Deer to attend this ever so important AGM. Come out and vote and do your bit to keep our province amazing and strong and free. So I hope to see you all at the AGM. And if anyone from Edmonton asks you, who should I vote for? Please say Jill Didow. Thank you, and God bless.
And here tonight is the second candidate in Edmonton. Please welcome Bobbi Menard. Here you go.
Thank you so much. So I have to say, I met Jill in person despite the fact that I have known her spouse for years. Am I standing on your court?
No, you're good.
Oh, we're good. Okay.
Or else I'd have to say Jack, move here.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. We're good. All right. So I've known Edmonton, for those of you who are wondering who have not lived or worked in Edmonton for a long time, I've often remarked personally that Edmonton is the largest small town of 1 million on the planet. It is an intensely integrated, lovely, caring community that we absolutely need to win back. So I have put out very clearly multiple times to a lot of people as I've been a volunteer on my CA in Edmonton Northwest, as a volunteer on a CA in Spruce Grove, Stony Plain. For those who have wondered, I was the campaign manager for Minister Turton in the last election. I do have organizing experience, but I am very, very clear with my friends, my colleagues, and my community. The road to a conservative future in Alberta includes Edmonton. We have the capacity for cultural change built on the values that we hold together and we hold really dearly. It will take us building relationships, it will take us building community, and it will take us being a little bit brave, because I am not going to stand up here and tell you we are doing well in Edmonton right now. In fact, we have a really good chance of having no other option but to go up. It's where we're at. So, and here I am spreading Edmonton's message and my sincere belief that this party has an absolute path to a conservative future that includes Edmonton. You're probably wondering why I'm here. So, a little bit about me. I have 5 kids. My youngest just turned 18. And so I now have time to leave Edmonton. I work for a family business. We have a rural agriculture business in a niche industry. And from that, we've been really blessed to start a high-tech startup that is moving across Canada, and we're hiring across Canada. I help out with that. So I had a little bit of flexibility and was able to move some stuff down and come down here. In part, one of my values in and around unity is we can't just say it, we have to behave it. So when possible, we get off our butt and we go. So is there a vote in this room for me as an Edmonton director? No. Is there people in a party that I love, I have spent countless hours for volunteering, and I sincerely believe presents the best chance for freedom, for truth, and prosperity for my children and potential grandchildren? Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think I'm going to agree with any of you here 100% of the time. I do think that I am absolutely delighted that you made me welcome. I am absolutely delighted that I have the opportunity to say that I was in Calgary to talk about Edmonton. And I am just genuinely hoping that if you're online and you see this, please vote for me. I think there's a very, very good list of reasons why that makes sense. But today, I'm literally here to build relationship.
Fantastic. So you and your family epitomize the idea of free enterprise. I mean, you and your husband started another smart company.
Yeah.
A technology company.
Do not ask me about that, or you will get the nerdy lesson of your life. There should be a red card right there, right now. Should be like waving it.
Oh, there's lots of nerds here. In fact, the guy who does all of this work is like super, and he is brilliant. And actually, we have 4 of them back there tonight.
Perfect.
So,
we will start talking about nitrifying bacteria in wastewater any second.
There you go. See, and we move along.
Yeah. There we go.
So you have a family business that's agriculture oriented.
Yes. So we own a small. Well, it's not small. We raise 500,000 trout, many of which are in your ponds in this great city, just outside of Red Deer, in a recirculatory aquaculture facility. So we have done a lot of really amazing things, and one of my favorite things about Alberta is how much our rural people love our land, and I am just so proud to be a part of that tradition. We are able to do things that recycle our water at 99.8% per day because we raise inside raceways. I think there's a tremendous number of success stories of diligence, of smarts, of science in rural Alberta, and I think that they're mirrored and replicated in Edmonton, in Calgary, and one of the great opportunities of this party is to create that connectivity that is uniquely Albertan.
So you're good, yeah. Brilliant. So you're demonstrating, I think, out loud here that while you reside in Edmonton, you're connected to rural. You have an understanding of family values, faith, freedom, charity, small enterprise, and fiscal accountability. So your commitment to where we're going as a party, where would you like to see your role in Edmonton take hold and the difference you can make in the next 2 years?
So I started in media. Just don't hold that against me. But one of the things you find that when you build an audience is you need those big ideas and to be unashamed and to be brave about them and to be curious with other people and respectful of where they are in understanding those ideas. They're the best way to make friends and to grow a movement. And I firmly believe that as Edmonton's population grows and as Calgary population grows and all of the legitimate thorny problems and challenges that will come with unconstrained growth and the absolute ridiculous policy out of Ottawa on that.
You're in Calgary, you can say that.
I'm in Calgary. It's ridiculous policy. Okay. Those big ideas that we hold deep within our hearts as Conservatives are absolutely the ideas that we take to those communities who have seen in Alberta. They're not coming here because they think we suck. They're coming here because we are successful at being us and going out and forming those relationships. And quite frankly, as an organizer, putting a little bit of strategy behind it, and how we reach people with intention and respect is how we create a future for all of us that includes our growing cities.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bobbi Menard. Next up, he hails from the north. He's the incumbent for Northern Region. We have a nice video here from another candidate who I think actually made it because no one ran against him, Mr. Mark Hunt.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mark Hunt. I'm the acclaimed Northern Director for the United Conservative Party in Alberta. I want to thank the Calgary-Lougheed CA for putting on this Cowtown Showdown and regret that work commitments prevent me from attending this function. I'm a Canadian veteran who has been married for 30 years with 5 children and 3 grandchildren. I reside in Northeast Alberta and work within the oil and gas sector, as well as have family ties within the agricultural industry. As a Northern Director going into the second term, I've had the privilege to serve on the Provincial Board of Directors for the last 2 years and look forward to continuing to serve for the next 2 years. I feel I bring a balanced understanding of the constituents' concerns in the Northern Region and look forward to continuing to represent and serve for the next 2 years. As a closing thought, please come to the AGM and let your voice count. Thank you.
Mark was blessed with great light. Did you notice that in his video? In the future, do your video standing outside. I think tonight we've seen an amazing number of qualified Conservatives who will do an amazing job as your representatives on the provincial board. Let's give everybody an amazing round of applause. Now you might have noticed I've used the word amazing 5 times in 3 sentences. There's a reason for that. Because the next segment of our program tonight has to do with something that is simply amazing. And that is the willingness of our government to tune up the Alberta Bill of Rights, first established in 1972 by the late Peter Lougheed and the Progressive Conservatives of the day. So I promised you that I would tell you my little story. So there's 21 new rights that I think you will find tonight right on the money. You're going to understand them all, okay? Fascinating how many of them have been ignored, say, as there was references tonight, for the last 4 years, 5 years. Who knows how long the Liberals have been there anymore. But I had this socialist person who claimed to be an NDP say to me, "We don't need any more rights. I'm happy with the 13 I have." I said, "Opportunity." I said, "No problem." I took a page out of the Premier's book. I says, "I'll tell you what, let's give you a choice. You can keep the 13 you have and waive the extra 21. That'll be one of the new Alberta Bill of Rights inclusions, is that you can waive your rights if you want to, and you can never give them back." So if you're out there and you're the NDP and you're watching this, realize that if you're okay with the 13 you have, fantastic. But if you would like to see more rights and more freedoms, then you should be in favor of what the next 2 gentlemen are going to bring to you. There's 2 gentlemen who thought, we're going to get behind an idea, and that is writing the new Alberta Bill of Rights. The first speaker, Mr. Scott Payne, was one of those gentlemen who was right in there with all of the phrases and ideas, getting it down on paper. The second gentleman, Mr. Mitch Sylvestre, as you will learn, is a hard-driving businessman who wants to see things get over the finish line. So, oh, there he is. Sorry, you have to put that product down. We're not doing any commercials for those guys. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Scott Payne.
Yeah. You'll be okay.
Okay. I'm going to follow you.
Is this on? Can everybody hear you? Okay, I'm going to talk about what we submitted to the government as recommended amendments to the Bill of Rights, but I'd like to start off with a few things. I'd like to talk about leadership, very important, and how it's related to constituency associations. So Calgary-Lougheed, you guys are notorious, famous, you're doing lots of things. And oh, can you hear me? Okay, there's a short in here somewhere. Anyway, all the things that you're doing, amazing leadership in conservatism. It doesn't happen without the leadership of Darrell and without having a great MLA like Eric Bouchard. So great job on that. I do want to motivate you guys to be even better, but I don't think that there is a more fitting name for a constituency association than Calgary-Lougheed. So a great former leader and a great CA. However, I think you guys can do better because Bonnyville, Cold Lake, St. Paul has an army, and they also have a great leader in Mitch Sylvestre, and he'll be coming up to speak. And they also have a very strong MLA in Scott's here. And then the final riding I'd like to talk about is my riding, is Brooks Medicine Hat. They have a MLA you may not have heard of. She's kind of quiet, demure lady, Premier Daniel Smith. And really, I think a lot of the excitement that we had last year and a lot that we have this year is due in no small part to her. When she said sovereignty, people's ears perked up. When she started taking back areas of authority from the federal government, people started to pay attention. And when she talked about increasing our affirmed God-given rights in our supreme legislation, so the Alberta Bill of Rights being part of our Alberta unwritten constitution, I think everybody paid attention last week and saw that video. So all credit to her, all glory to God. She's been working on things for a long time in the background. I had on my phone here, because I can't remember the full name of it, but in, I think, November 2022, when she got the leadership and won the by-election, she hired another great Albertan, Preston Manning, to lead a panel that's called the Public Health Emergencies Governance Review Panel, or FERGIP for short. I think they're starting to call it the Manning Panel now. So anyway, if you get a chance to read it, I think you're looking at about 400 pages, including the appendices. But go on alberta.ca, read, I think, yes, chapters 10 and 11 of the report, which is the recommendations, and read appendices 6 to 9. And in there, you will find 13 recommendations to amend the Alberta Bill of Rights. So she didn't commission a panel without some goal in mind. So she's been thinking Bill of Rights for a long time, and she's kind of come out with it now. So good on her. Please be at the AGM. Wear a black hat to support her. I do come from a long line of hat makers, by the way. So, but please be there to support her, because if she's not there after the AGM, I don't think the Bill of Rights is either. So it's a great opportunity to get on with it and thank her. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So everybody needs a kind of a visual of what success looks like. So we put forward recommendations. This isn't the Alberta Bill of Rights. It won't be the Alberta Bill of Rights. The government will draft its own Bill of Rights and probably has a lot of it done, if not the whole thing done by now. But this is what it can look like. We should have a parchment that gets signed. I think a lot of you probably have seen the Charter of Rights and Freedoms parchment. It's got the House of Commons in the background. So we should have something that we can see visually and then we hang up, and there should be a copy, just like the Canadian Bill of Rights, as you'll see in your members of Parliament offices. This should be in every MLA's office, every judge's office, every police station, every school room, because we need to learn our rights just as our American cousins to the south know them, so that we can defend them. So when another pandemic comes through and we have police officers pulling hockey players off the ice, or we have other police officers that are, arresting stormtroopers in Lethbridge. If we have somebody telling us we can't do something or we must get an injection to go to the movie theater or elsewhere, we can stand on our rights. And we can hold chiefs of police accountable. So just very briefly, what we did is we took the original Bill of Rights that still remains. It's been updated in 2000, just adding parental education rights. We added the 13 recommendations from the Manning panel, which you see in red. We added 22 rights and freedoms, which you'll see in blue. And we took out, most importantly, so if you are going to email your MLA, if you are going to email other MLAs, ministers, and the Premier, I recommend you say, by the way, whatever you do, take out all notwithstanding legislation or wording. Because if you read the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, specifically Section 1 and Section 33, you'll see that that bill, or Charter of Rights and Freedoms, has handicapped itself. It's kneecapped it. It's really allows courts and parliaments and legislatures to override your rights.
Here, here.
Anyway, next slide, please. I only have about 20 minutes to speak, so I've got to go through quickly. But I will be down here for questions after if anyone wants to talk to me. And if you want to send an email to blackhatsab@gmail.com at the bottom there, we'll be happy to answer you in time. Okay, so we'll just get through the preambles, but those are very important parts of it. One important part that was added by Leighton Gray, I'm not sure if you people know him, he's got a great podcast, but he's one of the top 50 lawyers in Canada, just voted in about a month ago. And he is one of the lawyers that beat the government in court about the COVID mandates. So he is also an Alberta treasurer and a great leader. So he brought a lot of credibility to what we did and helped improve it. Okay, so freedom of religion, belief, and conscience. I think everybody's kind of got those concepts. I won't get into the details of that. Right to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness. So that encompasses a lot of different things. This bill covers many policies that are in the party governance policy policy declaration manual. So that goes back to Ray Strom and his team, that they've helped bring policy forward for voting at the, how many AGMs has it been now, Ray? A dozen? 3? Okay. So this is where the grassroots can come in and affect policy. So we made it part of our policy that we got in last year, and Ray's team helped to bring it through, and thanks for that, Ray, that we wanted to expand rights from the Charter. We wanted to add certain rights, and we wanted to add any rights that appear in the party governance manual because they were voted on by the members, rights and freedoms. So that includes certain things like right to work, certain things like, keep men out of women's spaces. Yeah. So, and many other things that we can imagine. So, and pursuit of happiness, that's pretty broad, but there's certain things in there that we really need to have for sure. Freedom of speech, expression, and from public or private censorship in any form. So, the Bill of Rights is not to protect us from the federal government or the provincial government or municipal governments like yours in Calgary. It's to protect us from all of those governments. Rights and freedoms are granted to us, obviously by God. Everybody will have different opinions on that. But within the Constitution of Canada, the 1867 Act, which is still a main part of the Constitution, there's the distribution of legislative powers. Part 6, Section 92, starts the provincial powers. And it says, and I'll just paraphrase, that provinces have the exclusive, bold, double underline, italics, in red, exclusive legislative authority, and in relation to these matters, subsection 13, property and civil rights in the province. Wow. Boom, a lot of heads exploding, right? And mine did a couple of years ago before we started this. So that's pretty much everything. Some people say, well, what about human rights? If you go through the Constitution, you will never see human in there. That's more of a later 60s thing, I think, when that came out. But human rights are just really a part of civil rights. So this gives us broad powers provincially to enshrine our rights in supreme legislation. So now, up until the legislature sits, and I think it'll be Tuesday or Wednesday, is my guess, is when the province will actually put the bill forward to amend the Alberta Bill of Rights. You have an opportunity to email, I suggest, all the MLAs, ministers, and the Premier, and tell them what you want, and be specific. So take that opportunity. Freedom of parents to make decisions concerning the health, education, welfare, and upbringing of their children. So, in short, parents' rights. We have another Alberta treasurer, Shauna Sundell from the Irreplaceable Parent Project.ca, I believe it is. She drafted this. So we see whether it's certain trades, some teachers believe that they are co-parenting and actually have more trust and authority over your children, our children, than we should. It's funny that, we see in the newspapers, some parents get charged with abuse or whatever, but we always see teachers getting charged with things as well. Why? Because they come from the same population as parents. They're no different than us. They're no more special. So this one is close to, near and dear to my heart because I've got a couple of kids. They're out of the house now, so they don't listen to me anymore. It doesn't really matter. But I think they're going to have kids someday, and I want them to have that authority over their children so that they don't get big surprises after a couple of years that some of the people in this audience may have seen. So please speak up about that. Freedom to keep and bear arms, including ownership and use of firearms. So, So I was talking about the preamble. I go off on tangents, and it usually takes me a couple hours to get back to the point. So here I am. Leighton Gray added to the preamble a mention of the English Bill of Rights from 1688 that granted citizens the right to bear arms. So that actually preceded the Americans. So we have it in our common law, and as an element of property, a subset of property, it's really and truly the government of Alberta's exclusive legislative authority for property rights, and of course, firearms being a subset. So very pleased to hear the Premier announce that in her video last week. So if you haven't seen it, go on alberta.ca or YouTube Daniel Smith Premier Bill of Rights, you'll find it. So freedom to keep and own private property, including land, livestock, and chattels. And she did mention she did mention property rights in her video as well. So even send those messages of encouragement and thanks, be there at the AGM, and then let them know what you want to see in property rights. Because there's a lot of details to property rights, zoning and all those types of things. And there's all kinds of stories where governments may not have taken your land, but they've screwed it up through rezoning or roads, whatever, other developments, those types of things. So now's the time to speak up so we can include some of those details. Next slide, please. Freedom from supervision, surveillance, and unreasonable search and seizure. So the National Police Force, I won't mention their name, you might know who they are. There's just an article about they're going to increase the use of drones in forested areas. So there are a few trees in Calgary. So we already have helicopters going over the cities, and a lot of that can be good. But we've all watched good ideas go bad. So it's one of those things we want to make sure that they don't have listening devices or video of our homes or what we're doing. And even, intruding into our financial matters. So there's all kinds of things that we want to protect ourselves from. Yes. Okay, freedom of mobility. So this is essentially an expansion of what's already in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but everything that we might like that's in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms we should be looking to have in our own Alberta Bill of Rights, because the Charter itself, again, it's handicapped itself. Section 33 allows any legislature or parliament, as long as they give notice, to legislate away your rights from Section 2 and Section 7 to 15. So it kind of really only leaves language rights for you. So those things can happen. All right, freedom to remain silent under questioning, detention, arrest, or trial. So, you know, we've seen some famous trials. We saw how the police were used during the pandemic. So we need to affirm these types of things here, including we should always have the right to have a lawyer present during questioning, not to just speak to them before questioning, because they're very famous for charging people and then just say, hey, if you disagree with it, just take it through the courts and deal with it. But anybody can take a look at that and say, hey, I get arrested, I get embarrassed. I think there was a lady down east who just shot a water gun and she's been charged with assault now, right? So I'm not saying those egregious things are happening here, but they can. But we don't want people to be charged, thrown into essentially the confession box. They're left by their own devices, and then they start answering questions like, were you here at this time? They may have been at that place, they may not have been, they may get confused, and then all of a sudden that becomes evidence against them. So we should have the right to have a lawyer present. Okay, legal counsel be formed such right. Freedom to demand natural justice and procedural fairness in all criminal and civil matters. So we saw how long the people in Coots incident were in jail before actually going to trial.
Still are.
Yep, 100%. And that should have happened within 18 months according to the Supreme Court from a few years ago. So we need these guarantees within our Alberta Bill of Rights and others. So if you got good ideas, send them in. Freedom from arbitrary detention. So I think probably some of that would have been seen at Coots and at the convoy, truckers convoy in Edmonton, Ottawa. And there will probably be future conservative type protests, but left wing as well. Whoever protests should not be just thrown in the clink or pushed out of an area or assaulted by police or otherwise, right? They have a right to protest until they start breaking other laws, right? So assembly, freedom of speech, expression, all those things need to be protected. Okay, freedom to democratically elect and recall legislators by voting through secret paper ballots to be manually hand counted. So this is another example of what was in the policy declaration manual from last year. Banff Kananaskis forwarded that policy about the tabulators. So I think everybody has some piece of foolproof technology at home. Please raise your hand if you have one. No, nobody does. Lawyer, sorry. I think we all know that engineers are very crafty people, whether they're computer engineers or building bridges or blowing them up, creating weapons, counter weapons. People think of different ways to do things. So even if the tabulators were working properly, not abused, not broken into, they brought doubt into an election. Yeah. And that is the most evil part of it, I think. So I think we've now have the government saying, yeah, we're going to get rid of that. That's great. But let's make it our right that we don't have these types of things that can take away our vote. Freedom to use sufficient force necessary to defend person, family, home, and property from any and all occupation, theft, or destruction. So, Premier Smith, God bless her, in Bonnyville again, a great riding, Bonnyville, Cold Lake, St. Paul. She said in January, I believe we have the right to bear guns, or to bear arms, sorry. And she also said, and I believe we have the right to self-defense. So the bad guys and gals do not attack us when we're in a boxing ring and we got our dukes up and we're ready to go. You're at home, partially clothed or naked if anybody does that. Hands up if you're naked, just kidding. You're not awake, you're not aware. Or you're walking in the park, you got your headphones on, it's dark, you can't see them. And they always carry weapons, generally. In fact, the person themselves becomes a weapon, whether they're going to choke somebody or hit them, whatever it is. So we don't have an opportunity to prepare ourselves. So if we have something like a firearm, we should be able to have it ready to go to defend ourselves. There are enough laws for negligence that nobody is going to leave a loaded firearm around when you've got young children. And if the excuse is, well, you might use it in spousal abuse, well, spousal abusers are going to do what they're going to do. And they're not going to obey laws and regulations to have a firearm triple locked or whatever the deal is. So this is what we believe in. If you believe in it too, send your emails. Show up at the MLA's office. Where's your office? Sorry. Darrell will tell you after. Okay. Freedom from discrimination, including upon the basis of diversity, inclusion, or equity. So this, again, another policy that came out last year. So some people in the old days might call it reverse discrimination. It's really divide and conquer, make us all a bunch of different tribes of, people, everybody's got a different gripe against everybody. And again, this is where our children are going to suffer in education or job opportunities. So we need to make it fair for everybody. Freedom to access financial services to goods and services and to conduct commerce via bills of exchange. And that would also include, precious metals or whatever we need to do. So people are concerned about the central bank digital currency. Good thing to be concerned about, because if they tell you they can turn it off, well, that's probably an idea of what they're going to do. And whether they bring us to poverty through inflation or otherwise, we need to legally be able to use other currencies or precious metals or whatever to trade with, and not actually be considered part of the black market. Is Darrell giving me the hook here?
Scott, go back.
Okay.
15.
Did I miss something? Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah.
Freedom of informed consent and to make personal health decisions, including to refuse vaccinations, medical or surgical procedures without any adverse consequence by any authority or employer.
Hear, hear.
So, it's a good idea. So we can't really take too much credit for that, because that's really what the Premier's been calling for. And I think you'll read in the Manning panel report, or the FERG as we like to call it, that that's some of the stuff that they want to protect us from. If you do get a chance to read the Manning panel report, and a week later you come to some conclusions on it, they're also going to change a bunch of legislation as well. So it's not just the Bill of Rights. So I think we're going to see some great things in this legislative session. So, and this obviously hits home anybody who was forced to take an injection or to not. I actually, there's a great football team in Calgary, I can't mention their name, but I was a long-time season ticket holder, but a member of my family couldn't get vaccinated, and I had to cancel my season tickets. And I gave them opportunities to talk to me, and actually 2 years later somebody did phone me, vice president, great guy, heard me out, but they wouldn't promise to not do it again.
Time is becoming an issue, so let's see where we can go here.
Okay. All right. Yeah, next page. So we're basically just about done here. But one thing that came up was freedom to demand independent public inquiries into the conduct of government. So we see governments talk about these things, and then they'll have committees to talk about a committee, to maybe talk about an inquiry, which will cost about $20 million, when we recognize, and they take years, and usually the summaries or the reports that come out of it really don't want to point fingers at anybody. Nobody gets fired. They might change some policies, but I think this is where, and we've seen it, we as a party put forward a policy to essentially change the Bill of Rights. Now, I think the Premier was going to do that anyway, so credit to her. But this gave her a little bit more momentum to do it, I think. And if she wasn't going to do it, certainly she's doing it now. But imagine if we can actually start a process to inquire what happened, who did what, and be part of the report that makes the recommendations. More power to the people. And you'll find more than enough volunteers that would be happy to help with these things, in my opinion. Freedom to access government services and government information. So kind of a basic guarantee that, maybe if you don't get vaccinated, you can still get your passport. Or you can get unemployment insurance because they've shut your business down. Or you can show up to the hospital, and if you have a condition where you can't wear a mask, you don't get put off to the side and have to fight for your health care. Or there's a million different examples of it, and I think we need that basic guarantee. And then the right of official languages. So English is our language in this province. Unlikely that they're going to attack that. It'll probably be one of the last things that comes out of it. But we felt it was important to have in there. And so Darrell had come up with 3 softball questions for me, so we don't even have to have them. So the answers are 7 blue, and grilled cheese sandwiches.
Thank you very much, Scott Payne. There are thousands of hours of volunteer time put in with Scott and his team. Big round of applause for everyone from the Black Hats. Our next presenter is a force in and of himself. And you know how that is? Because we all know him just by his first name, Mitch. Ladies and gentlemen, Mitch Sylvestre. You're still here, right? Okay.
Well, hello everybody. Hey, Mitch. I'm very, very honored to be at the second powerful most CA board in Alberta.
And thank you for conceding number 1 to us.
I'm very proud of my group today. We sold 290 tickets. We bought 290 tickets to the AGM.
Unbelievable. I think Bonneville sends the most number of members to the AGM. Although, with 5,428, there's got to be someone real close.
I know. Rimby Rocky Mountain House is like 70 tickets behind us.
Okay, fantastic.
So, yeah, awesome.
How about Lacombe?
Next, actually.
Yeah.
So I had a bet with Tim Oven that I would get more people to the AGM this year, even though it's in his backyard.
Okay, so how many buses are you going to take down there?
3 for sure.
All right. Mitch, your time is running clear, but you've got a lot to say. I'll leave you to it.
Okay, so I'm Mitch Sylvestre. I'm from Bonneville. I'm the head of the Bonneville Cold Lake St. Paul CA Board. I'm a TPA director. I used to be with the APP until I became a CA president, and I couldn't be partisan or involved with politics to do that, so I got out of that. So basically, I wear any hat that it takes for me to win. That's the deal. Winning is what it's all about for me. Can I have my first slide, please? Second one. Okay, so that's who I am, that's what I do. We've been winning battles from the very beginning of the time we got into politics. So what can you do as an individual? Quite a lot. Actually, don't take it for granted that you can't accomplish anything, because I'm living proof that you can. Here's the thing. I remember the day when I stood up in front of a group in Bonneville at a meeting without knowing how I was going to do this. And I said, we have to fire the premier and we have to replace the board. And then, 3 days later, somebody came up to me and said, hey, have you met this? Have you ever heard of David Parker? And of course, my nature is I want to win. So I went and found this guy, and away we went, and we accomplished all that. Never been done before. Next slide, please. The thing that I find with us and people is they don't think big enough. And if we're going to regain our freedoms, we've got a real battle, so we have to think as big as we can think. Here's what's happening in Alberta and in Canada. That's the amount of money in billions of dollars that we give to Ottawa, $244 billion in 15 years. And that's how much Komick collected, $327 billion in that same amount of time. That does not include, I'm also head of Alberta First Pension, That does not include the $3 billion a year we give to Ottawa in pension. So that's another $3 billion times 15, add $45 billion to that. Plus another $1 billion a year that we overcontribute in employment insurance. So there's another $15 billion. So all of a sudden, Alberta is batting way above its level. Next slide, please.
Violent crime is up 40% under this Prime Minister. Auto theft tripled in Toronto. Housing costs have doubled, and none of the promises have come to fruition. One ArriveScan company received $250 million in contracts. Let's get this straight. It's a company with 4 employees, headquartered in the basement of a tiny cottage. They got IT contracts even though they admit they do no IT work. $250 million? WTF. Where's the funds?
More and more people are compromising nutrition due to high food prices.
It's extremely hard because there are large grocery store monopolies that are trying to milk the maximum profit.
A new survey found nearly half of Canadians have reduced the quantity of meat they buy, while 45% are prioritizing cost over nutritional value, with consequences extending well beyond their wallet.
Canadians are actually concerned about their own health due to higher food prices over the long term. That's 3 out of 5 Canadians, which is a lot.
678,000 smackers. That's how much of your money Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has spent on vacations this year alone. Must be nice.
Penn's plan will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Meanwhile, the NDP Liberal Prime Minister has raised taxes on gas, heat, and groceries, raised taxes on paychecks, raised income taxes on middle-class and lower-income Canadians, raised taxes on small businesses. He keeps raising taxes. It's enough to drive a man to drink. But he wants to tax that too. On April 1st, another 5% increase on beer, wine, and spirits that will kill jobs for those workers and raise costs on consumers.
The leader of the official opposition doesn't care about facts.
Right from the parliamentary budget officer's numbers, he says $1,674 is the cost to the average Ontario family, and the rebate is only $1,047. So Ontarians are paying more than they get back, just like British Columbians, where the NDP government is administering the federally mandated carbon tax. And according to the Vancouver Sun today, the budget presented by the NDP in that province says the carbon tax will raise $9 billion over 3 years and only pay back $3 billion. What happened in 2015? I know, he happened, Mr. Speaker. How can we make him unhappen and stop the crime?
So what we're talking about there is money and power and corruption. So what we have is an absolutely corrupt government, a lawless government. Not only is he stealing money from us with impunity, Trudeau thinks he's a king. 250, 60 million there. Do you remember when Freeland did that presentation, or the senator questioned her, and she had $2 billion of it going to a, as of yet, unformed company, and it was open-ended. It was going to end up being $15 billion. How about during COVID? They printed $575 billion. Out of that $575 billion, they acknowledge that there's $32 billion missing. So what's happening to the money? There's a relationship between governments and people. Tyrants all steal money. They all enrich themselves. There's a direct correlation between how rich they are and how poor you're becoming. And that's the way things work. They're taxing us into oblivion. They're doing it on purpose. So if you're wondering why we need an Alberta Bill of Rights, it's the first step to protecting ourselves. That's the deal. That's why it's there. Mr. Carney, I'm also head of Alberta First Pension. So I think we got $335 billion there that we can grab. I don't know if you're aware of the situation, but let me explain it to you in a couple sentences. We pay $9 billion to the federal government. Our seniors collect $6 billion. There's an overage of $3 billion there, and it's annual. It's going to continue for 25 to 30 more years. This overage could be taken and given our seniors a 40% increase in pay. That's just one of the things that we could do with it. That would still leave us $600 million surplus every year. There was a prenup signed early in the 60s, in 1965, 1966. Ontario was concerned that they were going to get taken advantage of because they were the biggest contributors in Canada. So there was basically a prenup, and the prenup says this: if you contribute more than you take, that money will go into a fund for you, and then you will be able to take it back with interest when you so choose. That number for Alberta today is $335 billion. The reason that they're not giving us that number is because it's $335 billion. And there's been 3 actuarial reports done, and the last 2, well, they got them done, they came to the same conclusion. So our biggest objection at the 50 or 60 town halls that we've done is that keep your hands off our pension, right? I mean, that's what they say, that's what their signs say. So bring in Mark Carney, the king of green, a banker. First thing he does, he's been there, what, 2 months? He said he's going to take $50 billion out of the pension fund and transfer it to his own company. No lie, honest to God. They make 1.5% on that money, is what it costs to service that money, so invest it and take care of it. So $500 million a year is what they're going to pay themselves to do that. And they're worried about us having our hands on their pension. Actually, to tell you the honest to God truth, the only way, and I'm digressing here, the only way that we can take care of a pension is to bring it home here, but we can take care of it.
Here, here.
Our MLAs are accessible. My MLA sits right beside me at every CA board meeting. He works with us. Eric does the same thing. That's the way it should be. They should be working with us, and we can talk to them. Next slide, please. Okay, so Canada's changing, and they're changing it for us, and they're doing it on purpose. They're bringing in mass immigration. What for? There's only one reason to bring in mass immigration. I'm not against immigration. I'm against 5 times more than we need immigration. I have wonderful Filipino employees that I brought into Alberta and actually into Canada years ago. They worked for me for years. They've now moved on. Wonderful people. Had to have them. Couldn't get people to work. I'm from an oil town. Oil companies pay big wages. Sporting goods stores don't pay as big wages as oil companies, so we had to bring in people to help us get the work done. So that was marvelous. But the end goal here is to change our politics. That's absolutely the end goal. Next slide, please. All right, has the Charter Bill of Rights failed us? Absolutely. Next slide. What has happened? Every single right and freedom that we've enjoyed has been basically broken. The one thing that you get as you age is perspective. So, and it's the only good thing about aging, actually. So, what happens is, once you get perspective, you see what things used to be like. For things to be happening like they're happening today in my dad's time, it's unconscionable. Bill C-21, red flag law. This has to do with guns. They're going to take it, and they make it law, it's already law today, that this is a tattletale bill, where you can tell on him and say he's an unsafe gun owner, and the police can go in his house and take his guns, and then he's going to have to go prove that he's not a guilty person. Wow. That's exactly opposite of what's going on. How else are they going to take their guns from us? There has to be a method. Now that's the other part of that is it's intimidating. So you'll be looking around to see what your neighbors are going to say about you because it's going to become a punishment. Amendment to the Broadcasting Act. They have basically bought our media. Trudeau gave $700 million to himself so that he could buy media. I'll guarantee you that he's taken a lot more money than that because our information is now all coming from one place. And that's not just here. I mean, that's national and international. You see it all over the place. Next thing, Online News Act. You can go to jail for life for hate speech now. Okay? That's where we're going. I'm painting you a picture, and it's a bleak picture, and I'm explaining to you that This is where we are, and most people refuse to acknowledge the fact that this is where we are. This is death by 1,000 cuts. This is what's happening here. Next slide. So, vaccine mandates, Invoking the Emergencies Act, pandemic lockdowns and restrictions, absolutely all total nonsense. All of it. There's a difference between rural and urban. And the big difference between rural and urban is it's, of course, smaller, and the idea is that you know people and you can see what's going on. In Bonneville, I witnessed 6 people we had no COVID. So let's get that straight. We had no COVID, we had like 6 cases of COVID in the whole CA, like in the whole area. Then they vaccinated. We had 6 people dying a week. No lie. We saw 7 or 8 miscarriages, it's actually 7, in 1 month in the Bonneville Hospital. 6 months after the injection. So, am I saying that that's what it was? Absolutely not. But here's what I'm asking you. The leading cause of death in Alberta is unknown causes. I just saw in the ticker the other day on the news thing that the fertility rate in Alberta is at an all-time low. What did the Pfizer report say? The Pfizer report said fertility issues and heart issues, and people were dying. The problem with that whole thing is that nobody's checking to see why that's happening. That's also unheard of in our day, might add say. If people were dying and they didn't know why, they would be looking into it. They would understand that that's a problem. And if women are losing babies one after the other, they would also be looking at that. Next slide, please. All right, so the outcome of everything that they've done to us, so COVID might have been a distraction so they could print the $575 billion. So they censored us, they're taxing the hell out of us, and don't think that's an accident. They understand how much money we make. They know all the stats. They know that the kids that bought $600,000 or $700,000 houses at 1.5%, when it gets to 5%, their payments are going to increase $2,000 a month. They totally understand that. They understand that before they're going in. Our freedoms are at risk, and what's the next thing they're going to do? Next slide, please. They're going to take away our guns. Always the first step to big trouble. Always the first step to big trouble.
Yeah.
It is the beginning of you're going to own nothing and be happy. The first thing they take is a gun, which is private property, which is the stepping stone, the gateway drug, if you like, to taking all of your property. Next slide, please. Premier Smith said in Bonneville, I believe we have a right to bear arms, and I believe we have a right to self-defense, so know that help is coming. Next slide. I'm not American, but they fought a civil war in 1776. They understood what it was like to live under tyranny. They understood also what it was like to defeat the strongest army in the world at the time. And they understood at that point that a well-regulated militia, which is a citizen's army, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Next slide. And here's the reason, and this is Mao. All political power comes from the barrel of a gun. The Communist Party must command all the guns. That way, no guns can ever be used to command the party. If you cannot defend yourself or your property, do you have freedom?
No, you do not.
Absolutely not. Next slide. Okay, situational awareness. Now be aware that your situation changes and can change. And that's what's happening here. This is a picture of 1943 in Nazi Germany, and it's about the situation, and I know Nazi things are out there, but this little boy, I saw this picture, and I looked at that little guy and his mother, and here's the thing, this is what this is about. They had 10 years to get out of there. All the things that were happening there are happening here now.
That's right.
Every single thing. Propaganda, they took the news media, first thing they did. When you only get the information from one place, you don't know what you don't know. What's changed from when we were talking about my dad's time is that we no longer have freedom of the press. It was their job to keep an eye on politics. It was their job to keep an eye on politicians. We no longer have that. What we have, and now, it's your job to keep an eye on politicians. Where before it was so much easier. And that's what happened. We had a culture that was depending on the press to take care of our politicians, and now that's done. So now what's happening is people are not doing it themselves. And that's where I really believe a big part of the problem comes in. So what did they do to the Jews? Let's talk about the Jews. We go back to the money part. The Jews were the richest people in Germany, also the most educated. They didn't think that anybody could do this to them. So they sat there and they waited for it to get better. I don't think we should sit and wait for it to get better.
Here, here.
I see this very clearly. I've been seeing it very clearly for 3 years, and it is getting worse and worse and worse in lockstep. We're seeing it. It's our responsibility to stand up and say no. Now that little boy there, because his mother didn't pay attention to the situation they were in, probably didn't make it through the next day because they did get shipped to Auschwitz. Wow. These people did get shipped to Auschwitz. Wow. That gentleman in the top right corner was actually executed in Nuremberg, and he was hung for killing thousands of Jews by himself.
Wow.
All right, so let's go back to the money. The Jews were the richest people in Europe at the time. These particular Jews, by taking all the possessions from the Jews, how much of Hitler's war effort do you think that paid for? 40%.
Wow.
40%. And it's always about money. 40%. So that means every plane, every gun, every ship, every paycheck, every bit of food for millions of soldiers got paid for by euthanizing the Jews for 2 full years. Next slide. This is what happens when you disarm people. There's 100 million people that died there in all of these countries after the people were disarmed. Next slide. Okay, this is what Premier said. The main point is our members want more protection for firearms rights, property rights, expression rights, and medical choice rights. That's what we're going to do. That's what she pledges. That's what she said. So this is what we're doing. So what we're doing is we're protecting your rights. It's important to us. And I want you to understand how this all started. This all started in a little room on top of my store, which I call the Crow's Nest. And we had 6 or 7 people around the table, and we decided that we were going to try to put in a new Alberta Bill of Rights. And then we did put it in, and we got notification from the committee, that PPGC, that we had 3 of the top 7 resolutions, and that this one was going to be at Brooks Medicine Hat, another CA that decided they were going to do the same thing. He reached out to me, Scott reached out to me, and I said, you know what, we've got 3 of the top 7. We'll back you up on this, and away they went. And truthfully, they did all the work. They really, literally did all the work. My job there was to get it in front of people, to get it to important people, because I had access from being involved longer than Scott had, and that's exactly what we got doing. So the point is, it's totally grassroots. Is there any rights in there that you saw that you don't want to have?
That's right.
Like, is there anything in those 22 things that you said, no, this is no good, we don't want to do this? And that's the way I feel too. Our big danger is they're going to water it down to a large extent, and we're not going to be happy with that. We could take the win, but maybe we could ask for more too. So it's going to be incumbent on everybody to do that very thing. Let's not sell ourselves short. They're willing to do it. It's the Premier's idea in the first place. We think that that's the right thing to do, is to make it strong and to make it something that we're proud of, and it came from the people. And yes, we can add to it at next year's AGM or forevermore. But for right now, let's push as strong a bill as we can push. And that's why we're going to take it to the floor of the AGM if we can do that, and the provincial board will hopefully get it there for us. Yes.
Here, here.
All right, so how do we fight back? Well, we got to show up. We got to think big. And I've been chasing people around the province and around my CA for 3 years. You don't understand how important it is to the people that do the organizing for you to show up. And you don't understand how much power you actually have, because I'm going to tell you what I know for sure. If they could have this completely done already, it would be done.
Right.
Understand what I'm saying to you? If they could have this done, it would be already done. They're just passing one bill after another bill after another bill at warp speed. And like I said, it's death by a thousand cuts, and then pretty soon it's going to be done. So we have to stand up and we have to say no. And that's up to us. That's up to us. And it's up to us to bring more people. That's why I'm really happy that we got 290 people. Last year we had 189 people, so we're growing. That's important. But you know what, actually, I thought I was going to get 600. Yes. I really did. I really thought this was going to be an SGM. I actually lost a bet to Scott Sears. Scott Sears said we'd get 250. I said we could probably get 600, so I almost got a bottle. But at any rate, it's still a win. I'm not complaining about it, but I thought we were going to do better. Next slide. Okay. So amending the Alberta Bill of Rights is the start. If that doesn't work, well then we go to next step. I know most people don't want to think about next step, but next step is always an option. Be aware, losing our gun rights is pivotal to this. Freedom of expression, the first two rights that the Americans passed, freedom of expression, religion, freedom of the press, which they thought was mandatory, and the right to bear arms so that we could protect our rights. So remember that. You go to the AGM, vote, and thank you for listening. Take care.
Hear, hear.
Mitch, come here. You've logged a lot of miles.
Yes, I have.
This isn't the first time you gave this presentation.
This is the second time in Calgary in 8 days.
I know. I just want to say on behalf of everybody who's a member of the party, that your contribution is invaluable. We notice it. We appreciate you. And we know you're doing great work on behalf of thousands of people. So thank you so very much. Big round of applause for Mitch Sylvestre, everybody. It's absolutely critical to show up. So what do we know? We know that having the conversation is essential to building bridges and to build community. We know that when people are stymied or squelched, or they don't have the opportunity to speak up freely, that we are all in danger, and we see that happening every day, everywhere we go. When I spoke just recently to Eric Payne, it was at great risk that Dr. Payne came to an injection of truth. And from that event, 2.5 million people were reached around the world to get the message that there was hope for body autonomy. And you will see in the Bill of Rights the issue of medical choice and bodily autonomy. To Mitch, gun rights and free speech are essential, and I think that bodily autonomy is right there with those three priorities. So in Calgary-Lougheed, we're big on having the conversation. We're big on having conversations that people don't want to have because while they're important, they're uncomfortable and they make you feel queasy. So we thought long and hard about what to do next. We thought, let's do Injection of Truth 2.0. And what would it be about? Well, we watched mRNA vaccinations become front and foremost at the last event, but that was not the question. The question was, why has there been a 350% increase in the number of childhood deaths since 2020? Turned out it was 3,328%. I was wrong. I forgot the decimal. And Mitch alluded to it earlier, and he said, well, shouldn't we ask questions of why the number one cause of death in Alberta is unknown deaths? Should we not want to know? And are there not a lot of people suffering? Is there not a lot of trauma and fear and just a lack of answers to questions have, like, why is my son have myocarditis? Why did my great aunt die of excessive protein in her blood? I don't know. I don't know the answer. So we found that the best way was to find the best experts in the world to come and help us answer these questions, because we don't know. But we could choose to be informed. And so that's what we did. So now we're going to pose another question. Where do we want to go from here? Well, it's essential that we move to the process of healing. And so we've come up with 4 pillars of healing humanity. And it's important that we come up with an emotional protocol to help Albertans deal with their trauma of all of those that they know are experiencing long COVID. It's absolutely essential. It's the humanitarian part of being an Albertan. It has nothing to do with being conservative, by the way. Absolutely nothing. It has everything to do with being a compassionate conservative. The second thing is, are our children safe in Canada? So there's great work being done by NCI, National Citizens Inquiry. Mr. Sean Buckley and his team are having 3 days of testimony in Vancouver on October 17th, 18th, and 19th. And he will come and present his findings in person for the first time to a live audience. The third point is, should we not follow the money to find out how we could improve our COVID response or pandemic response the next time around? Shouldn't we want to know where there's an extra 37 bill? Just somewhere. Sounds like a lot of cake to me. And more importantly, what is the real scope of all-cause mortality? And who would be the world expert that you would ask this question of? Dr. Denis Rancourt. The man has studied 125 countries, and he has data that he's going to reveal for the very first time at an injection of truth. Now, people need to realize that this is about healing. This is about finding a way to live with ourselves, to live with a community, and to build that community into a strong place. And so for all of you, I invite you to buy a ticket for you and a friend at UCP Calgary-Lougheed.ca or at aninjectionoftruth.ca. It's a remarkable journey that we're on to ask these questions. We do it with love and compassion. We do it to understand. We do it so that we have a better place to live in and to know that we're doing everything we can to do our part. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight, to my entire CA board for your undying support, to our MLA, Eric Bouchard, and to absolutely everybody who drove from across the province to be here tonight. Good night to everybody who's here. Good night to everybody who's at home. Thank you all. Oh, and by the way, we're going to go over to the 403 pub across the street for an after party. So join us over there.
Thank you, Darrell.
Thank you, guys.